President Buhari signs 2020 appropriation bill into law, and headline inflation increases to 11.85% in November. Plus, federal government launches electronic records management project for financial efficiency as global debt rises to $188 trillion. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Amina Nujain. Welcome to the program. We begin with cheering news that Nigeria's budget cycle has been restored to predictable January to December fiscal year. This followed the formal signing into law of the 2020 Appropriation Act by President Muhammadu Buhari, the earliest in 11 years. The president directed ministries, departments and agencies to ensure effective implementation of the budget towards optimizing the desired impacts.
The National Assembly worked uncommonly long hours in the interest of our people and the national economy to ensure detailed legislative review and passage of the budget within 2 months. I equally thank the Ninth National Assembly for supporting important legislations such as the Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contract Amendments Act and the 2019 Finance Bill. These laws are vital to the successful implementation of the 2020 budget. Now, we are well positioned to effectively implement the budget and deliver our promises to Nigerians.
And the International Monetary Fund, IMF, says total global debt rose by $3 trillion to $188 trillion at the end of 2018 as Nigeria, China and other countries increased their borrowings. Data from the Debt Management Office shows that Nigeria's debt increased to 25.7 trillion naira as of June 30, 2019. The IMF, in a new update of its global debt database, said global average debt to GDP ratio edged to 226% in 2018, 1.5% above 2017. Meanwhile, a Washington-based findings show that average debt ratio declined in advanced economies, but there is no clear sign of significant push to reduce debts. Edo State government has instituted an oil palm program worth 68 billion naira to increase economic activities in the state. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, launched the intervention program aimed at revamping the oil palm sector for global competitiveness. Elizabeth Omoko reports.
The country's total domestic palm oil demand and consumption are 2.5 million, with local production capacity at 1.25 million metric tons. The country's global market share in palm oil production is currently at 2% as against 43% in 1960. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says the federal government is doing all it can to revamp the sector. He wants economic saboteurs to desist from dumping oil palm into the country.
By placing palm oil on the exclusion list, we have seen prosperity in our rural community because jobs have been created, because industries have come alive again. The companies are profitable again. That is what I call the benefit of our FX restriction on palm oil. And that is the reason we continue to appeal to those who are involved in smuggling or who are involved in dumping, that the days of smuggling and dumping should be over.
For Governor Gordon Obaseki, Edo State has provided a total of 120,000 hectares of land for the oil palm plantation program. He says it will set up implementation office to help train, continuously review and ensure that stipulated guidelines are strictly followed.
Edo State government has meticulously classified, cataloged, legislated, and created access to about 120,000 hectares of land, which is now made available strictly for oil palm development. 5,000 hectares we give to you, 30% must be reserved for smallholders outside who you will offtake from, so that some of this money remains in the community and they help you secure your investment within the community.
The 68 Act of 92 billion naira required for the project will be funded by the Central Bank of Nigeria. It has a 9% interest rate loan and 10 years payment plan. In Benin, Elizabeth Omoko.
And the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has launched an electronic records management platform for the tracking of incoming and outgoing mails and letters from and to the ministry. Minister Zainab Ahmed says the initiative was born out of the present administration's desire to enhance efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery, promotion of interagency synergy, as well as the fight against corruption.
It's my profound desire to create a paperless ministry with an end-to-end automation of all the administrative processes.
The world is now moving to what we call artificial intelligence. The human intelligence are being gradually fade off. Everything must be electronic so that at the end of the day, at the fingertip, you can get the information that one wants it.
Inflation increased by 11.85% in November of 2019, gaining 0.24 percentage points higher than 11.61% recorded in October of 2019. Muplang Dakok has a breakdown of the figures.
Price Index and Inflation Report for November 2019, as released by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, shows that on a month-on-month basis, the headline index increased by 1.02% in November 2019, a 0.05% rate lower than the rate recorded in October 2019, which was 1.07%. The report also noted that the urban inflation rate grew by 12.47% year-on-year in November from 12.20% recorded in October, while the rural inflation rate increased by 11.30% in November from 11.07% in October. The Composite Food Index rose by 14.48% in November compared to 14.09% in October. The report attributed the rise in the food index to increases in the prices of bread, cereals, oils and fats, meat, potatoes, yam and other tubers, and fish.
While we count down to Christmas, Nigeria's inflation rate is moving up. Its current stand is 11.85%. What are the factors responsible for this increase, and how can government achieve the single-digit target? We have with us Dr. Abraham Tafa. Glad to have you join us on Business Express.
Thank you very much again. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
All right. The inflation figures, 11.85% in November, the highest in 19 months. What do you think was responsible for this change?
Well, inflation going up in December is consistent with cyclical pattern of inflation in Nigeria. Once any festive period is approaching, you find prices going up because people are rushing to buy goods and to buy goods. So sellers are trying to see what they can get from the surge in buying. But beyond that, again, having the budget being passed around this period, a budget of 10.5 something trillion, and then having expectation that borrowing will soon be approved, all these things are signals that Nigeria's fiscal policy will be expansionary. So the market is beginning to react to this expected increase in public spending. So you see inflation beyond being a cyclical issue, it's also there's a fiscal aspect of it that is pushing up the prices. Okay,
in my introduction, I talked about the Christmas approaching. How does this affect the scheme of things?
Yeah, like I said earlier, there's a cyclical pattern for consumer prices. You know, prices are low during certain seasons and high in certain seasons. For the Christmas period, just as it is for any festive period like Salah and the rest, consumer spending is usually high. So what happens is that prices respond to that to that increase in demand. Again, what happens again in this kind of period is that inflation, the inflation is driven by the component of consumer price index, not every aspect of, not every basket that is summed to arrive at inflation increased. It's the consumer price aspect that is pushing up the general inflation that we see.
Okay. Yes. Now, some experts are talking about food pushing the inflation. We have composite food index rising by 14.8%.
Exactly.
It's in November, 14.04% in October. How significant is that?
Okay, if you look at that change, like if you look financially, moving the last quarter of the year is October, November, December. So generally, if you plot in Nigerian's inflation on a quarterly basis for a long period of time, you will notice that increase in the consumer component of the inflation of what is used to arrive at the inflation calculation. So basically, it's just consumers responding to more spending, the market sellers expecting more sales. But unfortunately, while consumer prices are going up, consumers are also aware of this expected increase in food prices. So consumers will not be rushing to the usual market that people know about, the usual wholesale market and the usual organized market. Consumers are finding new markets. You see people resident in Wuse going all the way to Suleja to buy certain goods.
So village markets are filled up.
Exactly. So by the time we get to like December 26, 27, you will hear people selling in Wuse and those organized markets complaining of low sales because consumers too are learning that once the price go up, we have to find new markets to buy our goods. But the MBS will calculate it based on general prices.
But this village market, what do the town markets know? What do they know and don't know that, you know, they shift based on season?
Information asymmetry generally filters through the market system.
Yes.
You know, people, it's just a call away. It's a text away, a WhatsApp message away. So those in the village already have, when I mean village, I mean like markets away from the core cities.
Yes.
So those people selling there are already aware that this period, people in town will be complaining of high prices. So our own also, let's raise it a little bit up. But you know, their own cannot be exactly like that in the town because perhaps they're excluded from a lot of taxes. To enter wholesale market, you pay tax at the gate, you do all those kind of things, shops and the rest. But village market, they have the opportunity from farm to market. So their prices will still not be as bad will not be as high compared to that in the town. So basically.
Okay, talking about food prices. Now, despite the marginal increase in inflation, reports show that food is getting cheaper in Lagos and Ondo, as well as a number of northern states in the couple of days to come. Can you paint a picture of nationwide? What does it look like?
Okay, food price going down in places like Lagos.
Yes.
Places like Lagos, you know, there's a link between prices of goods and services and the level of financial system development of a country. In Lagos, for instance, people are more financially included. Financial inclusive index for Lagos, if you isolate it, is higher. So people can order for a pot of soup in Lagos with their phone. And though the number of entrepreneurs or small businesses in this area, in food business in Lagos, they are large. So there's competition as per who will have the lowest price. So in Lagos, because of its level of financial development, it will not be as compared to places like Abuja, where you still have to go to the market finally to buy even 2 bags of yam. Then places like Kano, don't forget, there's a spillover effect of a feel of insecurity in places like in the extreme, in the in core northern states. So the amount of people traveling to those places will not be as before.
Okay.
So food prices will definitely, the people selling already know that the population to depend on for sales will not be as before. So keeping their prices low as much as possible will serve as a signal, to make people travel more, and make generally the economy for those states better in this festive season. In terms of sales, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, moving away slightly, the president has signed the budget, and the CBN has been retaining monetary policy rate for a while.
Okay.
Now, looking ahead into the coming year, what would you predict?
Okay. First of all, let me join everyone to commend the president for the early signing.
Yeah, good news.
And again, to commend the National Assembly leadership for the commitment and the backdoor consultative interaction that happened between National Assembly Committee and the hardworking staff of Budget and Planning, Ministry of Finance. There's a lot of work went behind, I can imagine, to get this document all passed. Now, basically, the budget was raised, it's higher than what was proposed. 10.33 is now 10.5. So what we expect again is that public spending will be higher for 2020. The earliest assent to the budget, which is the first since return to democracy, also takes our country back to January 1st to December 31st budget calendar. We all know that. But one thing I want to add that I'm sure not everybody has thought of is that this means we are taking our annual spending plan serious. Once we've gotten this right, the next thing is to begin to see how to bring quickly a medium-term plan for the next 4 years that will tie again to development planning. Because to take your fiscal 1 year public spending is now sure, January 1st to December 31st. Then what next? The next thing is tied to a medium-term plan that will also be consistent with a long-term development plan. Then CBN holding the rates constant for a period of time is also expected. Like I said, the budget is expansionary. The borrowing also paints an expansive fiscal policy stance. So the only policy option that the government has to ensure that inflation does not become a fiscal phenomenon is to use this monetary policy tool by keeping rates low. CBN is likely to maintain a tight monetary policy stance for as long as our budget deficit is expanding, and financing it in the meantime remains a bit uncertain.
Now, I'd like you to break it down a little bit. What key areas should government concentrate on to insulate the economy against shock in 2020?
Okay, in 2020, that's why I like this budget that was passed. If you look, some sectors like agri, health, the allocation didn't change in terms of capital project. It doesn't mean that they didn't take it serious. The idea is that those sectors have a lot of intervention projects, intervention funds, I beg your pardon, from donor partners, development partners, and other funds that the National Assembly may not be able to oversight. And that's why if you hear what the president said during his speech, he's urging development partners to also revise their timetable to align with this budget that has been signed. But one area that's important to help the economy stay away from shock is addressing this problem of insecurity. And if you look at the security budget, when it was sent to the National Assembly, that amount was around 778 billion. But this one that was signed is now 784. You see the increase for the allocation to defense. So generally, ensuring security is very important as people travel this period, and not just security in Abuja and capital cities. I mean, right into communities, villages, and this will help to keep food prices the way they are, help people migrate from one point to the other, help economic activities take place.
Okay, and you are talking about economic activities.
Yes.
Do you see a convergence between the budget, the ERGP, as well as subsequent national plans?
Okay, yes, I see. And the first step is that we need to return to a January 1st to December 31st budget calendar. That has been achieved already by this timely passage, which took a lot of collaboration between National Assembly on one hand and the presidency on the other hand, and many other hardworking staff behind that we don't see. Now, once this budget has gone back, don't forget, ERGP elapses its timeline, that's what I mean, elapses 2020. So it's also important for the Ministry of Finance and those in concerned with the nation's economic management to begin to make Nigerians to have an expectation of when the next ALGP will be out. Already, the president made it clear that by September next year, he expects that 2021 budget proposal should be submitted to NAS. So they need to tie all these things also. We need a new ALGP quickly with a timeline to expect when it will come out.
I'm sure you have a lot to tell us if we continue, but we just have to bring it to an end.
Thank you very much.
At this point. We have been talking to Dr. Abraham Tefa Williams. Thank you so much for always joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you
so very much. Yes.
Let's go to the money market now and see how the Naira is performing against major currencies. And in a midweek trade, the Nigerian Stock Exchange for 18th November closed positive. It appreciated 0.02% to close at 26,665.37 basis points, while market capitalization stood at 12.8 trillion naira. 232 million volume of stocks valued at 3.1 billion naira were traded on the floor in 2,831 deals. The banking sector was the most sought after at the end of the session, with Access leading by Zenith Bank and Guarantee Trust Bank. The first three advanced were Stanbic, Cadbury and Okomu Oil, while UACN Property Development Company led the decliners. And for key stock market performance across the globe, let's join Abosede Abel.
Global markets started early trade for 18th December mostly positive. In Africa, Ghana's GSE Composite, Nairobi's All-Share and South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 were green, while on the flip were Namibia's overall index and Tunisia's Tunidex. European stocks were mixed as investor caution returned following UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's vow to block an extension of EU trade talks beyond 2020, reviving fears of a cliff-edge Brexit. FTSE topped 0.2%, CAC 40 0.05%, while DAX was negative. Asian markets were mixed, with Japanese shares leading losses after data revealed a sharp fall in exports. The Shanghai Composite was down 0.18% to close at 3,017.04. Nikkei lost 0.55% to close at 23,934.42, while Hang Seng Index gained 0.15% in its final hour of trade. Meanwhile, in the United States, the S&P 500 rose to another new record. It closed just above the flat line at 3,192.52. The S&P 500 also closed higher for the fifth straight session. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and Nasdaq Composite also ended the day with record closing highs. The Dow climbed 31.27 points, while the Nasdaq rose 0.1% to 8,823.36.
And that's a wrap on this edition of Business Express. We'd like to inform you that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is @NTA News Now. #BizX. Join us again on Friday for another package. Until then, I am Amina Nushen.